Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of our Final Fantasy X to 100% guide. We are just looking over Shinra's bestiary and just all the different enemies that we need to basically find and Oversoul. There are quite a few, needless to say. But we are lucky insofar as we do have an awful lot of them done, which is great. And as I say, when we get the other Dark Aeons, all those different Aeons will be finished with. But just again, what you can find is the vast majority of them are going to be in the Via Infinito, just on different floors. And the Via Infinito is the very last of the hotspots that we need to do. And basically, I'm turning off encounters and I'm just going to run to the... for this part, I'm kind of running through the first early couple of floors because those are the simplest fiends to defeat of particular groups. So whether it's the Tombries or it's various other bits and pieces, we can basically fight coyotes, flans, birds, dive beaks, all the rest relatively peacefully on these lower floors. And then it's just the case of getting into random encounters, oversouling those particular beasties, and then encountering them in the Via Infinito. So they kind of change up the encounter rate every 3 or so floors. So obviously here we have our dive beak and our flan. That flan has oversouled, that's perfect. And so long as we keep killing the dive beaks, we will eventually run into an encounter where the dive beaks will oversoul. And that is my one warning: when you are grinding certain enemies, it can take a moment for the oversoul thing to trigger, so just don't attack anything until you are certain they are definitely not going to oversoul. And again, always leave a pause because sometimes they can oversoul in the middle of the battle as well. So just be mindful and be careful, because once you kill the oversouled creature, you then have to kill, that same number, whether it be 20, whether it be 30. You're going to have to kill that many enemies to get the oversoul trigger to happen again. But as I say, on these earlier floors, you can encounter them relatively straightforward, and it's not too much of a problem on the earlier floors. And if you don't want to encounter anything, you can just do the console command of no encounters on Steam, and it will switch off encounters for you. So just be aware of that. That's pretty cool. And we can now just continue on with no encounters deeper and deeper and deeper into the cloisters. Now, we went originally to Cloister 20. We are going to now need to go to Cloister 40. And then basically 40, 60 and 80 are going to be bigger bosses that need kind of more attention than others. And we are going to be going through in this episode Cloister 40's challenge and Cloister 60's challenge. And I'm going to be honest, I basically was like, I know some of these battles can be kind of long, so I need Mascot to get more AP from abilities and stuff, so I wasn't going to be using cheesy strategies to kind of make these pointless. But once we get to like floor 80 and floor 100, I am going to be using cheese just to get by this as painlessly as possible for you guys. So as you can see, we ended up with Lord Giskel, his unsent, and luckily since we've had the elementals, we can now get the black elemental oversouled. And as I say, this guy isn't that much of a problem. Has some magic damage, but once you get the mascot with the auto shell and stuff on, it'll take even less damage than before. And if you're able to have unlocked the Catling gun on Kane's mascot, that will just do 9999 physical damage. And for most themes that aren't like super crazy high damage, that's going to be enough to take them out. And as I say, I wasn't ever worried about the Black Elemental. So like I'm just kind of foostering with some of Riku's abilities, again, just to get her extra AP. Because as you guys probably have been told ad nauseum, oversold enemies give bonuses to AP when they're defeated as well. So we're going to get a nice big boost for Riku as well. But as I say, all you need to do is max damage, and that's the Black Element taken out. Since it's oversold, that's now sorted in regards to that with getting through all those bits for the oversouling. But we're going to have to now collect all these wonderful things, including the amazing catnip accessory. If a character ends up on yellow HP, they gain Berserk and will do quad 9 damage on every hit. So giving that to a thief that attacks twice can give you over 10k damage. And just going forward, these guys could have been avoided, but now you kind of have to fight them. So the best thing I found is to use Riku and you make her use the erasers for attack and magic erasers, and then it'll lower his stats so he isn't doing much damage then. So Wildcat Power Eraser and Magic Eraser will be the best thing, and then Yuna, since she has 0 MP cost, can just keep AoE healing. So that's going to be great. But yeah, the Via Infinito is interesting, but because the console command can overwrite because typically, even if you had like a Charm Bangle on, it is ignored in the Via Infinito usually. So normally then you're meant to like be going through all these different battles and finding it difficult and potentially running away. Now, having said that, you could just equip the High Road Winds Garment Grid, which gives you first strike, which means you automatically load in at the start of the battle, being able to take an action, and then if you're a thief, you can just flee. So I'm just cutting out the needless running in, finding an enemy, having to run away, etc. But as I say, for the Monster Hunter achievement, I am going to have to come back here in my spare time and just fight all the enemies and just encounter all of them on all the different floors. But for me, I just wanted to get to Trema. I just wanted to get to the floor 100 boss. I wanted to beat the boss. I wanted to then beat the game. And then I wanted to make sure the 100% guide was working out correctly. So now that that's done, I'll then be able to hop back to here and just do that bit of grinding in my own time. Because as I say, every 3 floors, like the first couple of floors, first maybe 10 floors, it's all enemies from chapter 1. The next 10 floors, all enemies from chapter 2. The next 10 floors, all enemies from, chapter 4, chapter 5. So the Infinito just gets more and more complex the further down it gets. And as well as that, because we fought the Chocobo Eater in the Chocobo Cave, you can fight that boss multiple times. Because we ended up fighting, the King Vermin, you can fight those creatures multiple times now in the Infinito. The same with the Sacred Beast, the Xanarkand boss, or the Salamander, the Dragon in chapters 1 and chapter 4. Like, the Infinito has nearly every beast. The only ones it doesn't have are the ones in the other Bavel Underground, as in where we found the ribbon and we had all the different towers and we had to fight the stone touch guy in the underwater section, and then the Xanarkand Spectral Keeper, that sort of situation. But as I say, just keep on going through all these different versions of the Infinito. When you find out the way that one works, it's just literally repeating it over and over. When you've no encounters, you maybe have to fight just a normal Tonberry. But I want to preface this now. There are Mega Tonberries, and you never, ever, ever are forced to fight them. There is always some way to run around or avoid them. So just do not panic if you get to a certain stage and you're like, oh, there's a Mega Tonberry in the way. It's like you can either run by it or not interact with it, And so I'm leaving in certain stages of the Infinito, so you kind of know, okay, when you end up with this kind of stage, this is what you end up doing. And so, as I say, you can have the ones with the big red dragon, you just fight them, you can beat them no problem if you're around the 90s. This one is just like a long-winded one where you kind of climb up to the side, activate, fight a Tombury, and then, you know, the way forward is explained. Now, we get to level 60, so every 20 levels is going to be a big boss. So we've actually gotten from floor 40 to 60. Save, return, and basically once you have the Ragnarok accessory on somebody, preferably Yuna, because she's the healer and her AoE healing magic is great. So my plan here then is to basically give haste and regenera to everybody, and Riku is just on healing duty. She is going to just be throwing Phoenix Downs, throwing whatever, and realistically she could have really been on Alchemist, because the one shots are going to one shot regardless of if she's an Alchemist or not. So I could have done that just for quicker items, but anyway. It's basically Moogle Beam and Cactar Gun. And if you're able then to go into your items and use Twin Stars to give Pain 0 MP, and then Yuna has 0 MP, you know, it's all a really positive thing basically, if we're able to do that. I'm going to switch to the Matador song on Riku just so we can get better evasion, I would have thought. But again, the attacks that you can evade do maybe 1,000 damage, so it's not that much damage wise. But the other attacks, you know, that he does, you're not going to be able to do damage to them, or you're not going to be able to avoid the Matador Song, because it's like Moogle Beam or Cactar Gun. This Gigaton Crush will just target one character and do unbelievably high damage to them. But this is basically the fight. He isn't capable of doing as much damage as to impact your other characters too heavily. And that's where I would have said, instead of using all these ethers, I would have just thrown at Twin Stars just to give Pain 0 MP cost. And then between Yuna being able to either Moogle Beam when there's plenty of, you know, HP in the party, or if things are looking a bit dicey, she can throw a Moogle Life Gem. But as you can see here, Pain then ends up with not enough MP, and I silly ended up doing a antidote, whereas I should have just thrown an extra elixir or ether just to get Pain her MP up again, because she goes to use Gatling Gun and no hope. Run out of MP. But again, the Twin Star only works if Pain never gets hit with the Gigaton attack. If she gets hit with the Gigaton attack, she has to get that 0 MP cost reapplied. Unfortunately. Yeah. She has the break damage limit accessories. That's why she's doing over quad 9, which is brilliant. And again, just using Pain for offense, and then Yuna potentially for offense, potentially for defense. But other than that, there's not an awful lot left to commentate on. It's just a long boss. And you just need to be careful that you're keeping mana topped up and HP topped up. And then if in a very dicey situation, throw a Mega Phoenix, so you don't end up being KO'd, you know? Between Gatling Gun and Moogle Beam, you should be alright. And what's frustrating me in a little bit is that I could have sphere changed Yuna around her sphere grid to give her break HP and break damage limit if she was still on the higher power garment grid, just so she could also be doing over quad 9 damage. But as you can see there, Pain would have gotten KO'd, so the 3 stars effect would have been no good for her, unfortunately. But once again, Moogle Beam gives us time to charge up our Phoenix down while she's doing damage. And once again, if you keep Riku to potions, she doesn't need her MP for anything. And Yuna, technically, doesn't need her MP for anything. And I'm talking about MP there and not needing it, and then Riku unlocks the ability to use white magic while in her mascot dress sphere. So literally tying her to now all of her MP abilities in white mage, which obviously, you know, the game is obviously trying to encourage you to build up your other dress spheres so that these overpowered mascot dress spheres just get all the more powerful, because you now have a full skill set of, like with Yuna, she has the full skill set of the Moogle powers, she has the full skill set of the warrior and the Dark Knight. And there's nothing more frustrating than when, you know, it's like, oh, I've unlocked white magic, but all I now can use is cure, you know, as opposed to being able to have like full life and protect and shell and regen and all these amazing healing abilities, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be me for the rest of this episode, is just literally watching along to make sure you're healed up, make sure you're doing a top up on everyone's MP, you're using Moogle Life Ja in some cases, that because Moogle Life Ja will restore the person from KO as well as recover all their missing MP. So Moogle Life Ja is definitely another option instead of wasting more ethers, you know. But pretty much you guys can watch along. The episode is basically just finishing off this boss, which is just another maybe 3-4 minutes of this cycle of getting hit with Megaton Press, you know, Phoenix Downing. And that was me trying to Moogle Jolt Pain. But as I say, if I had have just Life Jid, it would have healed us all up to full. And I've had clutch timings where Yuna has managed to Life Ja, like cast the spell Life Ja, as she's been hit with like a KO move. And so therefore she just fully revives herself, fully revives Riku, and fully revives Pain. So I've literally avoided a game over with just the ability proccing 2 seconds beforehand, you know. And as you can see there, Pain absolutely max MP again. Kind of wasted that ether there. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Just he doesn't have any AoE attacks, so long as you have Life Ja ready, you shouldn't see yourselves all being KO'd. It's just a battle of attrition more so. And again, if we could have given Pain a 0 MP garment grid even, it would have just made this all the more quicker for ourselves. But I've been the RPG Recusant, and I hope this guide has been helpful so far. And in the next episode, we are going to go even further into the Infinito and get ourselves to basically just before the 100th floor. So thanks so much for all your support in the series. I hope you guys have been happy that this is finally, you know, returned to form and ready to be, you know, finished and uploaded. That's going to be me signing off. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
He's not here.
Who?
Trema.
Who's that?
Trema is the founder of New Yevon. He kept all of the spheres from Spear's past to himself and then vanished without a trace. Who'd have thought he'd crawl down here?
But that was a year ago. So he's probably already...
Dead? Maybe he was from the start. They say he was able to control the most powerful of fiends.
Which is why I really think we should go home now.